Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I want to welcome everyone to our 18th installment, Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Mishpatim. Now, interesting, Parshas Mishpatim are all these laws that have to do with the laws of damages. The most mitzvahs that are given in any one parsha. Again, most of them deal with the laws of damages, and there are three major tractates in the Talmud that these verses deal with. The tractates are called Baba Kama, Baba Messiah, and Baba Basra. The first gate, literally, second gate, and the third gate, and they are filled with all kinds of cases about damages. So one thing that I wanted to hit here is that the Torah says at the beginning, chapter 21, it says, these are the ordinances that you shall place before them. Right? Mishpat, they call it translated here as an ordinance, but a mishpat is a mitzvah that we do that makes sense to us. Right? Don't steal, don't kill. Right? Even though we may understand what they mean and what the essence of what the mitzvah is, nonetheless, it may not be the only reason why the mitzvah is given. Be that as it may, that's the difference between a mishpat and a chok, right? A chok is a law or a commandment that we don't understand, right? Paraduma is a good example, the red heifer. Because what did the red heifer do? When they took the ashes of the red heifer, the Kohen, the high priest, became impure, while at the same time, the person who they put the ashes on became pure, right? So it's a contradiction in terms. You can't make someone pure, and at the same time, the person making you pure becomes impure. It doesn't make any sense, right? So essentially, there are many laws like that we don't understand, but we still have an obligation to keep them because God told us to keep them. So, in essence, that's the difference between a mishpat and a chok. Comes along the Rabbeinu Bachai. Now the Rabbeinu Bachai goes into great length here. We'll see a little bit. We'll see a little bit of what he says. The Rabbeinu Bachai says that when it says these are the laws that are placed before you, right? So when we say before you, it doesn't just mean that these are the laws, they have to be judged. It's talking about law courts, and they have to if a person if a person has a disagreement with his friend, talking about two Jews, they have to go to a Jewish law court. So the whole discussion about going to a secular court, which you're not allowed to do, which we may discuss a drop, but the idea is it should be placed before them. Now, it also means placed before them that they should know the law like this, right? Really, we should all know the law like that, what to do in different situations. I ate a piece of bread, I washed, I sat down, I went outside to check the mail, I come back, do I have to wash again? Are there people eating there? They're not eating there. How does it apply? What's the case? So when we learn, right, everything we learn should try and be at the best of our level, the best of our ability to be practical. What do I do in such a situation? Now, you don't always remember what to do per se. That's why you always have to constantly review. So therefore, someone would ask you a question, why is it that, whatever it is? So you have an answer. Right? Again, our memories are fallible. If we don't constantly review, we won't, remember. So therefore, it has to be placed before you like a set table. So someone answers, snap, 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 snap. Right? You have to know what the answer is. So here, the Rabbeinu Bachai says, it has to be in front of you, not in front of people who don't know how to judge, right? Simple people, so to speak. Here he says it's in front of the Sanhedrin, in front of the 70 elders in the Sanhedrin, that they judge things before giving of the Torah. Also, it says, Lifneihem, in front of them and not in front of non-Jews. Right? You're not allowed to go to a secular court, as he brings down here, even if their laws are like our laws. Now, he says that if you do such a thing, and it's known that the laws of the Jews and the laws of the secular courts, right? If a person goes to a secular court, you're not allowed to. You transgress many, many transgressions. And not only that, it causes it to spiral out of control. One transgression leads to another until you make mistakes, until you cause damage, and there's no gvul, there's no boundary over here. Because if they decide, okay, let's say you have two Jews, so we'll make it graphic. You have two Jews that have a disagreement, whatever the disagreement is. So there's an obligation to go in front of a Jewish court. Now, if one Jew decides they're not going to go in front of a Jewish court, so what do? A person damaged you. You want to get your money back, and make this guy pay for what he did. But he won't go to a Jewish court. Now, even if you know he won't go to a Jewish court, it's not enough to know. You have to invite him. So what do? So you go to a rabbinic court. They send out a summons. Come on this day to the court. So you show up. That day, he doesn't show. So what do? You send him another summons. Third time, if he doesn't come, then the Beis Din will hear your side, even if the other person's not there. And if they think there's merit to what you have to say, they'll allow you to go to secular court. Now, on that, there's a question, as my Rebbe here points out. Says Mori Rebbe Rav Agon Ramosh Sternbach Shlita should be well. So he says that let's just find it here. Yeah, so he says that there's a din that you're not allowed to go to secular court, right? It's a total Torah it's a Torah prohibition that you're not allowed to go to a secular court. So what do? So you invite the guy the first time, he doesn't come. He doesn't invite. You invite him the second time, he doesn't come. You invite him the third time, he doesn't come. So then, if the Beis Din feels that you have what to offer, meaning you have a claim against the other side, so then they'll allow you to go to a secular court. Says Mori Rebbe, why are you allowed to go to secular court? The guy won't come to the Jewish court, right? If it's so bad to go to a secular court, why does the Beis Din allow you to go after 3 times? In other words, you're supposed to go to a Jewish court. He doesn't want to come. Fine, we'll allow you to go to a secular court. You told me going to secular court's forbidden, and it's going to lead from one transgression to another, etc. So why let him go to a secular court in the first place? Right? If he's not going to go to secular court, finished. So don't take him to court. Leave it. So you lost. So take it as a gezer min hashamayim. It's a decree from heaven. God wanted you to get punished for this, so that's it. You can't do it. And if you can't do it, move on. So he answers that if a person doesn't want to go to a Jewish court, then you invite him, he doesn't come, you invite him again, etc., and then they allow you to go. So if it's so bad to go, why are you allowed to go? Because you have no choice. It's not like you drew this up and you said, oh, how can I get him to go to a secular court even though it's forbidden? So you go all the way around China in order to do it, and you end up going to a secular court. You don't want that. In this case, you have a choice. You won't go to a Beis Din. You won't go to a religious court. If he doesn't go to a religious court, what choice do I have? The only choice is to go to a secular court. I'm not doing it because I think the secular court, is going to help me out based on my Jewish values, right? And secular court certainly values are skewed, according to the way they see things, not the way the Torah necessarily does. But this guy was mazik me, caused me damage. If he caused me damage, he should pay. We're not going to let him get away with it, because anybody can say, well, I don't want to go to court, so that's it. So the guy will walk away. Then allows people to damage and get away with it. So that we're not going to allow him to do. So we're not going to allow him to do it. So why, if it's so bad to go to a secular court, why do we let him do it? Because he's got no choice. Right? If he had a choice, he'd go to a regular Jewish court. Since he doesn't have a choice, can't do it. But there's another aspect here. The other aspect is that why do you have to invite him? In other words, if you know he's not going to come, this guy doesn't keep Shabbos, he doesn't keep Kasha, doesn't keep anything. You think he's going to come to a Jewish court? He's not going to come to a Jewish court. Right? You know that and he knows that. That's not enough. You have to invite him because it's honor for the Beis Din. Right? It's honor for the rabbinical court to invite him even if he doesn't come. Because then you're going according to what the rabbis want you to do. You know he's not going to come, so what? Is it 100%? It's not 100%. Even if you think it's 100%. Even if the other guy thinks it's 100%. Right? You still got to honor the court by going through them. Because as we mentioned, secular court is skewed. You have no choice if you have to go through them. But you can't go through them just for the sake of going through them without going to the rabbinic court first. So as he mentions here, as well, if one of the people is a secular Jew, and he's got no connection whatsoever to Judaism, then you should be allowed to go to secular court in the first place. The answer is no. Right? Even if you know he doesn't want to go, it's not enough. I sat in a number of cases in the famed Eida Haredis Beis Din in Jerusalem, and there were a number of times where someone comes and says, this guy took me to secular court. So the Beis Din, calls another guy in, or calls him on the phone, and says, we're not going to listen to anything about the secular court until you stop it. Once it's stopped, then we'll deal with the case. But they yell and scream and jump up and down and, show how serious a violation it is by going to a secular court. But again, if you have no choice, you have no choice. But, as Rabbeinu Bachai said, and we'll see a little bit more of what he says, that the idea of going to a secular court and circumventing Beis Din, right? It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing because you dishonor the Beis Din. At the same time, you're giving honor to a court that totally disregards Torah. Even as is brought down, even if the law were absolutely the same, let's say the Beis Din would have the case would come out the same if it was in a secular court as well. So you're still not allowed to go. Because you're not, as my Rebbe pointed out, you're not showing honor to the Beis Din. That's why you're not allowed to directly go. If it so happens, you bring the guy 3 times, he doesn't come, and the Beis Din feels you have value in what you're saying, they'll let you go to a secular court. That's not the goal. That's not the optimal way to do things. If you have no choice, you have no choice. Right? But the main thing is that you allow them to do it for one very simple reason. If not, then people get away with damaging other people. And that you don't want to do. Right? That in no way, shape, or form you want to do. So the Rabbeinu Bachai says it's a very severe transgression. He compares it to killing. That killing, is very severe. We understand. One of the 3 cardinal sins every Jew has to give up their life for. Right? If someone says, anytime, any place, you kill this guy or I'm going to kill you, you have to die. Right? You're not allowed to kill anyone. We know that is a severe din. You kill somebody. You take out their soul. But even anybody's going to come out from that soul. Right? This person was going to have children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You just killed a whole generation of people. So, as it's brought down, that anyone who kills one person, right, that they destroyed an entire world. Right here you have a whole world of people that are destroyed. Also, and the opposite, if you save somebody, it's as if if you save one person, it's as if you establish the entire world. Same thing, generations that are going to come out of him. So we understand killing someone, or the severity of it, and saving someone. Right? So the Rebbeinu B'chai says, what does killing someone do? Not only do you take him out of the world, and we're talking about his offspring and all that, you also have a severe transgression of chilul Hashem. Right? In other words, so let's rephrase that. Even though killing someone is severe, chilul Hashem is worse. Because chilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name, you see that how can a person do tshuva for a desecration of God's name? Desecration of God's name, you have to die, you have to suffer, go through Yom Kippur, and you have to do tshuva, right? Pretty severe. By stealing, right? Tshuva, repentance helps as long as you return what you stole. If you don't return what you stole, all the tshuva in the world is not going to help. So it goes through all these different things that are severe transgressions. But here, it's also severe. Because what am I doing? I'm skewing Jewish law. Because I'm giving credibility to something that's against Torah. And is going to cause someone damage against what the Torah says. So therefore, doing that on a regular basis is forbidden. And it's extremely severe because you're uprooting Torah. Now, there's another idea. That is also important. And that idea is let's look at what Torah is. Right? What's the difference between Torah law and secular law? So it says Rabbeinu Yerucham, right? In Das Torah, the famous Mashgiach, Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz, the Mashgiach, the spiritual mentor of the Mir Yeshiva, says like this. He says Torah and secular law are opposites. Secular law changes, right? From the morning to the afternoon, from the afternoon to night. It changes according to their will. Changes according to the way the wind blows. It can change for any number of reasons. And there are contradictions all the way through. One time it'll apply like this, sometimes it'll apply like that. Torah's not like that. Right? Torah is Chochmas Elokim. It's the wisdom of God. It doesn't change. Right? The reason it doesn't change is because God is absolute. He gave an absolute book. And when we have to figure out in every generation, right? You need a Beis Din, a great Beis Din in every generation to understand for that generation what the Torah wants. And therefore, they're allowed to interpret the law Or people will say, oh, you're changing the Torah. You're not changing the Torah. In essence, what you're doing is you're trying to find out if what the Torah says, how it applies. For instance, right, example I always give is electricity on Shabbos. Are you allowed to use electricity on Shabbos, right? You flick a switch, you turn it on, turn it off. Is a current, not a current? Right? How does it apply? Oh, you're changing the Torah. You're a conservative Jew. You make it up as you go along. It applies, doesn't apply. Why isn't that changing the Torah? The reason it's not changing the Torah is very simple. Because the Torah says you're not allowed to make a fire. Or we saw it by the man. Talks about cooking. Right? You're not allowed to light a fire in your midst on Shabbos. Question is, what is fire? Is gas from a range, a gas stove, is that fire? Well, it burns like fire. Right? Stick your nose in it, it'll burn off the top of it. Yeah, that probably is fire. Electric range, stick your face on it, you probably burn it off. That's probably fire. Microwave, similar to fire. Right? It'll work exactly the same. Right? But certainly you put something in and it's piping hot. The fact that it's piping hot is going to burn you. So at the same time, I would say it's similar to fire. What category comes under the laws of Shabbos? That's the whole question. Nonetheless, the rabbis forbade it in the last generation. So that would mean that it's similar to fire. You're changing the Torah? No, we're trying to see if it fits in or not. Does it apply or it doesn't apply? That's not changing the Torah. So, in secular terms, their laws change. But they can change for any number of reasons that are wrong. And there are contradictions. Torah doesn't change. Torah is always the same. So the idea is like this. The idea is that secular law, not only does it change, but the idea of secular law is to protect the people. Because if you didn't have laws, imagine how much worse the world would look right now. Imagine, the police force in New York didn't exist. What would happen? Right? It boggles the mind. It boggles the mind what goes on. So secular law is to protect people. To prevent chaos. In this case, what does Torah law do? Torah law makes a person into a mensch. Right? It makes a person more moral, or it should. Right? At the highest ideal, Torah can transform a person. It can make him a great spiritual individual. Does it mean it will? No. Is it a problem with the Torah? No. It's a problem with us. Right? We have a long way to go. We have a lot to learn. But see, the ideal of the Torah is to learn it, to keep it, and to have it transform us. Obviously easier said than done with everything that goes on in the world. Be that as it may, we have this book, and we have instructions how to reach high spiritual levels. Based on that, the question is, do we rise to the occasion or not? And either we do or we don't. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we don't. The idea is very simple. Take the Torah and live by it. Don't fall. And if you do fall, pick yourself up. So the Torah is supposed to transform us at the highest level. The more you learn, the more it should have an impact. If you don't like mathematics, then you're just a more intelligent person. You have more knowledge, but doesn't mean anything. Right? We say by the Shema, in the morning, right? The paragraph before the Shema, we say, Lilmod lamed lishmor v'lasos. I'll learn, I'll teach, I'll guard, and I'll do. And I'll keep the Torah. It's not a 5-year option to renew. It's the real deal. God spoke to Moshe. Moshe wrote it down. I have an obligation to keep it to the best of my ability. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. Doesn't mean I don't have an evil inclination. Doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. Everyone according to their level. But if you learn it like any other subject, and it has no effect in my life, so as Ramosha Schneider, the Rebbe, the famous head of the yeshiva of Eitz Chaim in London, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, may his name be blessed, would say, don't be a frummer student. Don't be an ultra-Orthodox student. We don't need them. We're not interested. In people who can learn Talmud and know it backwards and forwards, but it has no impact on their life. It's just an intellectual stimulation. All right, we can find other things to stimulate ourselves. We don't need that. In Korea, they learn Talmud in order to strengthen the mind. Right, so what does that do? Maybe it does strengthen the mind. Right, it makes it more sharp, more analytical. Does it make him into a mensch? Does it make him into a moral individual? No. It's mathematics. It's humanities. It's science. It's all these things combined that has no effect on my life. So you say, if it has no effect on my life, why study it? That's a good question. All right, famous story with Marcus Jastrow. Marcus Jastrow wrote a epic work called the Jastrow Dictionary, where someone's learning Talmud, you look things up, words, phrases, different things, right, in order to navigate your way through. Now you have art scrolls, they don't really need it. They give it to you much, on a silver platter. You're not looking up roots of words and different things. But here he did it for the intellectual pursuit. He had this thing for learning Talmud. He wanted to, make this dictionary so people could navigate it. And understand what's going on. They say he did tshuva at the end of his life, that he repented at the end of his life. Be that as it may. If he did, fine. If he didn't, then it was just an intellectual pursuit. Again, some people do it in stamps, some people other things. He had it in, Talmudic language. Okay, go figure. But, that's a frummer student, right? Let's say he wasn't frum. He's a non-frummer student. Intellectual pursuit. So I heard a great rabbi once say, and asked him about, his kids. Would you ever send them to university? And he said no. So he said, being brainwashed. Kids have to know things, how they were going to get a job. They have to have a degree and this and that. So he said, I've never met somebody who went to university, lived on a college campus. Let's make it easy. Lived on a college campus and became a moral individual. Haven't found it. Found all kinds of things, not that. So if really the ideal of education is to educate us, to teach us, well, what about morality? Is it supposed to teach us morality? Be better people? Or is it just an intellectual pursuit? Famous story, Bertrand Russell, professor of ethics, and he was extremely unethical, and his students, called him on it and said, how can you teach ethics and be totally unethical? And he said, if I taught mathematics, you'd expect me to be a square? No contradiction. In Judaism, we say major contradiction. You can't compartmentalize. You can't say, okay, today I'm going to be the Jew and tomorrow I'm going to be this. Aristotle, right? Give another example. Aristotle, world famous philosopher. Aristotle himself was also known as a big womanizer. So when his students once caught him, they said, how could the great Aristotle, the great philosopher, do X, Y, and Z? So he said, there's Aristotle the philosopher, there's Aristotle the philanderer. Get it? Both begin with PH. No contradiction for him. For us, major contradiction. Right? The role of Torah is to transform, to change us. It's not about an intellectual pursuit. You will get knowledge, no question. And then with all the knowledge, you'll see that there's still plenty you don't know. But what's the point of the knowledge? So you can talk to people at cocktail parties. Does it have a role in my life or not? So then someone would ask, well, isn't it better to learn it than not learn it at all? So yeah, you can say that about anything. Right? You can say that if you don't do it for the sake of heaven, in the end, it'll be for the sake of heaven. So yeah, why would that be true? It would be true because it should have a positive influence in the end. We hope. That the goal we're striving for? No. Is it most likely that it won't affect you? Could be. Depending how corrupted your soul is. Just add another layer to it with a little bit of holiness with it. Maybe, unless it's just for the intellectual pursuit, it won't do anything. If you don't want it to do anything, it won't. That's what it'll be. It can have an effect by osmosis. You know, there have been people totally turned around by just learning. That certainly can happen. You know, of all things to pick, person picks, Talmud or, or Bible or commentaries or whatever it is, it certainly should change you. Even at the very base level. At some level it should. Doesn't mean it will. The famous story with a student of the Baal HaTanya. You want to go learn in university. So the Baal HaTanya said you better be very careful. Because when you go to university, there are going to be a lot of things you'll be taught that's heresy, that's abikourses. It'll corrupt you. And you won't want to be a Jew anymore. So he said, listen, I've been by you for many years and I haven't been such a great tzaddik. Right? I haven't been made so righteous even though, I've been here for a while. So the Baal HaTanya said, that may be true. But see, if you go to Tuma, you go to the other side, you go to university. So what does that do? So what it does is, when it comes to something that is impure, you get impured by, in a split second, in a small amount. Right? The smallest amount touches you, you're impure. You come in contact with a dead body, even if even if the thing is like this big, right? It's very small. It still makes you impure by touching it. So he said that you become impure by being touched. Torah, purity, takes a while to become a part of you. And it's hard. It's one of the things, that you always have to work at. To acquire. So just because you didn't become so holy learning by me, you go the other way, you're going to lose it much quicker. So that is one thing that I wanted to hit. The other is an interesting thing that we'll deal with the drop, and that is, one second here, that is, yeah, so that is chapter 21, verse 19. Chapter 21, verse 19 says, Yeah, it says, if he gets up and it's talking about a 2 men quarrel, verse 18, one strikes his fellow with a stone or a fist, he does not die, but he falls into bed. If he gets up and goes about outside on his own power, the one who struck him is absolved, only for his lost time shall he pay, and it shall provide for healing. Right? Healing, as the Torah says. So the words are used, double language. The language over here is verapo yerape. Right? The root of the word is resh pei aleph. The word resh pei aleph means to heal. Right? Even in modern Hebrew, that's what it means. So, the Talmud says on this verse, we learn from here that it's permissible for a doctor to heal. This is a verse that if you have to pay for the healing, what does the healing mean? It means the doctor has the right to heal. So, Rashi over there says, God gives you the whack, so to speak, you get hurt, and he's going to be the one to heal you. So when a person suffers, he has to understand where the suffering comes from. It's not like, if a person hits a dog with a stick, who does the dog go after? The stick. But who's the one doing the damage? Is the person. So here, person gets hit or whacked or something happens, he goes after the person who did it, but really, the one causing it is God, because he wants to, you have to be punished and be cleansed for what you've done in this world, for your transgressions. So therefore, you have to go through suffering for whatever a person has done. So it could be, one aspect is that I might have thought it'd be enough just to pay the doctors, and he gives charity and he believes in God, right? And he doesn't get healed, and God will take care of him. But they have to be on a high level, right? So if he lived his life believing in God for everything, so believe God will heal him also, right? That's if he did everything according to that idea. But the point is that when a person gets whacked like this, and something happens and he suffers, it's because God's punishing him for what he's done. So I asked one of the great rabbis that he said he'd give $1 million in order that I shouldn't suffer. I don't want to go through suffering. You don't grow without it. Nonetheless, I don't want to go through suffering. But the fact that now I am suffering, and I have gone through suffering, I wouldn't give $1 million not to have it. If I haven't had it already, good, I don't want it. But if I've already gone through it, and it's purifying me, then I'm not going to give it away for anything. So once the Vilna Gaon, Rav Elijah Vilna, was saying to his students about the blemish of sin, how bad it is, and the suffering and the punishment and all this. So one of his students, after hearing this, fainted, and he felt unwell. So the Vilna Gaon went to visit him, and the Vilna Gaon said to him, he said, "Don't worry. When I talked about suffering and sin, I wasn't talking. I had no intention talking about you. You've suffered plenty, right? You have no idea how many transgressions being wiped away because of all your suffering." Right? So now, even though you understand that you suffered, so now you're going to straighten yourself out and be better. Right? That's one idea. The other idea is that who gives the doctor the right to be a doctor, right? To heal. The Rebbeinu B'chai says that a doctor can heal. We learn out from here that a doctor has the ability to heal. God grants him the ability to heal. But the Rebbeinu B'chai says only an external wound. A person gets cut, doctor can take care of it. But not an internal wound. Something that's internal, as my Rebbe here points out, only God can take care of. Right? No one else can take care of. Now, that would be very nice, except who in the world doesn't go to doctors if you have an internal problem? If a doctor's not allowed to heal something internal, then we shouldn't be allowed to go to doctors for that. So Maria points out that in previous generations, right, doctors had no idea what was going on inside. Right? They had no way to know. There weren't any x-rays or anything. So they had to rely on God. Right? They had no choice. Because you can't see what's going on. But today, since doctors know what's going on through x-rays, etc., and through these checks they can help someone, etc., then it's permissible to heal. Because they have that ability. Before they didn't have that ability, there's nothing to talk about. Now they have that ability, fine. So, on the one hand, the doctor has the right to heal. On the other hand, the person who's sick is obligated to think about what he's done in order to do tshuva and find, most important thing is really to find the right doctor that can heal him. Not every doctor is going to be able to help him. So he has to find the doctor that's right for him. Right? And he should pray that God sends him the right messenger. I've heard many stories. Went to one doctor, another doctor. Finally, a person went to the right doctor and was able to get healed. Now, it's interesting. The Talmud says, Tov shebarochfim legehenim. Even the best of all doctors go to hell. I mean, if doctors are there to help people, right? That's why most people become doctors, because they want to help people. Could be the money helps also, but that's their goal, right? They certainly want to help people. So why is it that says even the best of doctors go to Gehenna? Why? Why should the best of doctors go to hell? They're trying to do good work. So he said the intention is that when it says that the doctors say on themselves they're good, it means they don't have to rely on anybody. So therefore, their place is in Gehenna. So interesting idea. Right? One idea is the best of the doctors go to Gehenna because they don't need anybody else. I don't need to get a second opinion. I have my books. I have my sources. I know better. Right? There's another idea. Another idea is that, if doctors have the ability to heal and they're successful in what they do, let's say they're specialists or surgeons or whatever, you can also give them a big swelled head thinking they're so great. Oh, I don't need God. I'm the one who healed. I'm the one who did all this. Me, all five of us together. So, it gives them a fat head, thinks they're God's gift to the world. They don't need God. They throw God out the window. Throw him under a bus. So that's why it says best of the doctors again, and for that reason. Because they have swelled heads. They think they are the ones doing things. Give one example. There was a story, someone who daughter needed an operation. And they had to go to a specialist. And this specialist had the ability to save his daughter's life. So the father goes with his daughter. And the doctor takes a look at all the charts and x-rays and everything. And he says, yeah, I can help you. And I can save your daughter's life. So the man said, Mir Hashem, it should be good, right? With the help of God, you should be a good messenger and it should be good. So the doctor says, what do you mean the help of God? God has nothing to do with this. I'm the one in charge. God has nothing to do with this. Me. So the man said, take that back. He says, take that back. Of course God is helping you, right? This person was an Orthodox Jew. He says, take it back. What do you mean God's not helping you? Without God, you wouldn't be anything. It's like, I'm not going to take that back, and I'm the one who can help you. He says, if you don't take it back, I'm not sending my daughter. He says, fine, don't send your daughter. She's going to die. I'm the only one that can help her. So he said, there's a bigger person than you can save my daughter without you, right? That's God himself. The guy walks out. So his doctor, very smugly, said, okay, his daughter will die. Nothing will happen, what can he do? So his doctor, was a speaker at a convention, doctors, and he got up to speak. Big shot doctor gets up to speak, in front of hundreds of people. In the middle of his presentation, what happens? As the expression goes, when you gotta go, you gotta go. And he runs out the middle of the auditorium. Totally embarrassed. So he calls this man back, and he apologizes profusely, and he says, "You're 100% right. I apologize. I was wrong. I'll do the surgery. No problem. God should help." So the man was like incredulous. He says, "You're not even a religious man. Like, what are you talking about? What are you mentioning God for?" So he told him the story. He said he was giving this presentation, and in the middle of the presentation, he said, "I had to go. And I realized then that, yeah, I'm a big shot doctor. And yeah, I can help other people. And I can do great things, etc. And all these, in my specialty, etc. But you know what? I don't have control of my own bowels. I can just say, okay, plug them up, and I'm going to give this presentation anyway. I run my body." No. God was trying to teach me a lesson. Yeah, A, you got a big mouth. B, you got a big mouth. And C, you got a big mouth. And you open it up and you say, "I know better than God." Oh, you think so? You're in control? You can do whatever you want? Yeah, it looks that way. But guess what? There's so many things out of your control you don't even realize. One of them is your body. So when your body takes over and you gotta go, that's it. Can't stop it. It's going to come one way or the other. You got no control over that. Right? So here's this hotshot saying, in lecture in front of all these people, and he can't even control his own body. What we call eating humble pie. In any event, doctors should be the ones to be saying over the greatest miracles that God does. Eye looks like nature, this, that. There are plenty of things they see that they have no way to explain. But I wouldn't say that most doctors are believers. Even if they admit, I have no other explanation except to say that, there's a higher being taking control over here, because according to this, it shouldn't happen. There will be people like that. The vast majority, it's me. I'm in control. I do this. I do that. So for a lot of people, there's a nice concoction of humble pie they should eat. As this doctor's story showed, you're not in control. There's very little, actually, that you control. You may think you do, but the reality is you don't. You got free will, and you're not going to get zapped if I do the wrong thing. Right? It's not direct like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have free will. But don't ever think you became who you became because of your own actions. You have to, obviously you have to put your best foot forward. Without divine help, nothing happens. Someone once told me, like, I became who I am despite who my parents are. Really? You took yourself out of the womb? You clothed yourself? You fed yourself? You took care of yourself till you got older? And then you did all these great things that made all your money, but that you're so great? No, they didn't have any help. No one had any role in it. You did it yourself. Oh, obviously the person didn't say that, but that's where they're leading, right? Me. I do everything myself. Think again. God wants you to have it, you will. If He doesn't matter what you do, it won't happen. God giveth, God taketh away. Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says you're born against your will, you die against your will. So in parentheses you say, I still got to live. I still have to be part of this world. And being part of this world means that in any situation I have an obligation to listen to God and do what He wants me to do. Otherwise there'll be repercussions. And repercussions can be severe. But you see, when we get those difficulties, and we have Yisurim, and we suffer, at the end of the day, it's a kapara. It takes away our transgressions. So we should really ask for more suffering, but we're not masochists. We're not interested in that, right? But as we mentioned before, suffering's worth millions. Even though we don't want it, but the suffering you already got, take it. It's gonna save you in the long run. So the Torah gave permission for doctors to heal. Anything that happens on the inside, right? So now they have the ability, because now they can see things on the inside and help with that. But there are many things that many doctors will tell you. There are many things they don't have any explanation for. Why a person should live and not die. So we don't call that luck. We don't call that, chance. Lucky break, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's God pulling the strings. Just going to have the eyes to see. I also give conversion and Noahide classes. You take a look at my Facebook page at Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. Also Beyond Noahides. And you can take a look at my blog, rabbichaimcoffman.blogspot.com. rabbichaimcoffman.blogspot.com. Also, you go to YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where all these videos are. You go to YouTube and you search Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Everyone have a great Shabbos.